It is not the time to start a rivalry and new tension which disrupt global recovery. Instead, we all must focus on creating synergy and collaboration immediately.
Let's discuss the Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific has become a regional construct that draws global interest. As a region, it hosts some of the world's most important economies and some of the fastest growing countries. These include established industries thriving in technologies, such as Japan and Republic of Korea, and the rising China and India. Around them are new markets and sources of growing and capable sources of labor from emerging economies like Indonesia and Vietnam. Indo-Pacific is now the beacon of global economic growth. Renowned international firms and organizations were publishing reports of global economic projections in the coming decades, predicting how some Asian economies will have risen in the rank, some even replacing the position of European countries as one of the world's top economies by 2050. Bustling urban and industrial centers are growing, and the growth of digital economy, supported by massive consumer markets and rising use of technologies, also helped the growing attention to the region. Nevertheless, the region also faces challenges in realizing such expectation. The Indo-Pacific remains host to regional hotspots and home to unresolved disputes. This combination between massive geopolitical opportunities and challenges have made top policymakers across the globe to tout the Indo-Pacific as the new center of gravity in global geopolitics. How can we understand the geopolitical dynamics of the Indo-Pacific? The rise of the region's economies has been synonymous with the establishment of vital logistical lanes and the rising need for resources. In keeping up with the demand of global competition, countries strive to tap into more resources of welfare while trying to sustain those they have. The accumulation of such behavior has contributed to the many geopolitical sensitivities across the region, making important hotspots containing unresolved disputes over territories. Among them, places where there are direct or indirect involvement of major powers are places of regional concerns. This is due to the impact of any possible spillovers should things escalate. the South China Sea, and to an extent also the Taiwan Strait, are likely increasingly important arenas of great power tension, where there are risks of conflicts.
A few months ago, when I was in Indonesia, I had a chance to preview my country's approach to this vast and vital part of the world. I laid out the 5 core elements of our engagement. First, advancing a free and open Indo-Pacific. Second, forging stronger connections within and beyond the region. Third, promoting broad-based prosperity. Fourth, helping build resilience. And fifth, bolstering security.
Over the last 5 years, especially since the release of its Indo-Pacific strategy, the U.S. has ramped up its presence in and around these vital seas under the banner of their freedom of navigation operations, deployed to exercise the rights of countries protected by international law on the freedom of these lanes. Operations, according to observers, have featured at certain periods larger scale and longer duration operations, including warship passages and military exercises involving aircraft carriers, jet fighters, and bombers. These operations are also increasingly supported and joined by military assets from countries allying with the cause, notably European countries like France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. The AUKUS initiative is also part of such effort to deter what certain countries deemed as worrying behavior from China, especially in territorial claims. On the other hand, the increase in China's military projection capacity in the South China Sea has been apparent. Concerns over military installations and infrastructure, such as in Paracel and Spratly Islands, have continued to increase. China has also expressed concerns over the freedom of navigation operations from extra-regional countries, which consequently prompted the increase in frequency of fighter jets, warships, and conduct of drills involving firing of missiles, creating a chain of security dilemma. The trends are followed by the increase of military spending throughout the region. Stockholm International Peace Research Institute has observed that more financial resources have been allocated to militaries in the South China Sea region. Regional states, including Singapore, Japan, Australia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, have either tried to acquire new technologies or modernize their military. Some included nuclear submarines, precision missile systems, or fighter jets. The acquisition of weapons like combat aircraft, submarines, and missile defense systems are a source of worry over miscalculation and risk of escalation.
This has led to a security dilemma or some sort, where countries have attempted to increase their military spending to try to gain an advantage to their opponent so that they could be ready for any sort of provocations. They can plug in various capabilities that have gone missing or they have are currently trying to possess at the current stage or in the near future.
The geopolitical situation in the region is also made difficult by the US-China competition in other arenas. For example, in disputes over intellectual property rights, to even cyberspace competition. The US-China trade war over the past 5 years have prompted an amount of decoupling to global supply chains.
China is now the one country is the main player of global value chain. Because this trade war, the decline of export to China is decline in maybe until 5% to United States. And why China they have a lot of disadvantage for trade war, because 4% of export of China to the United States is 4% of PDB, or 20% distribution to all the export to of China, of United States export. The change to the global value chains, not only to China, but the country who have significant trading with the China, like Vietnam, Indonesia, and so on. Because China is the main exporter and Indonesia export to the China very quite a lot. So if the export to China decrease, so the export to Indonesia will impact.
For countries in the Indo-Pacific, the overarching US-China competition over values and models of governance and development continues to have an impact. A reorder of regional economic and political order is predicted to pull countries between US-centered or Chinese-centered political and economic spheres of influence. What are Indonesia's interests in the Indo-Pacific? The state of competition in the Indo-Pacific is now a geopolitical reality for Southeast Asia. Increasingly, Southeast Asian countries find that policies and narratives produced by great powers towards the Indo-Pacific, even those packaged as development initiatives, takes away the centrality of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Such challenge is significant to Indonesia, who not only believes that Southeast Asia should be captured as the center of the Indo-Pacific region, being situated strategically between the Indian and the Pacific Ocean, but also because of its traditional investment on ASEAN's position as the driving seat of regional order. Indonesia's main concern lies in trends and dynamics that emboldens the notion of an Indo-Pacific that is characterized by competition. Indeed, Indonesia sees that the Indo-Pacific can become a region of risks, with the lack of institutional ties between its major powers and the presence of long-standing geopolitical dispute. Without a stable Southeast Asia, Indonesia will be starved of a safe regional environment to grow as a rising power.
Indonesia wishes not to seek further diversion. Indonesia seeks to be as inclusive as possible. Hence, in 2019, we put forward an initiative or motion to have an outlook, an ASEAN outlook of the Indo-Pacific, to try to bring together the various perspectives of the Indo-Pacific outlook by various Southeast Asian member states into a single outlook that's been agreed by all 10 members that strive to be as inclusive as possible, to take into account all countries within the region, all powers, all types of governments, all types of societies. So there are no distinctions as to this country can join that or that country cannot join this. That is the essence of what Indonesia sees in its Indo-Pacific role. It does not want to divide, but it wants to include everyone together to be as inclusive as possible.
Indonesia also sees that the Indo-Pacific can become a region of opportunities, particularly as a region that can attract healthy competition between markets, innovations, and economic initiatives. By tapping the opportunities present in the region, Indonesia will become much closer to bringing the extent of the archipelago's potential. The challenge is that such shift between risky competition and healthy cooperation narrative are increasingly being defined further away from Southeast Asia.
All members of Indo-Pacific have chance to more broader export and also more burden of the investor and also more burden of the financial flow between Indo-Pacific and United States. Yeah. Because maybe a lot of investors from Europe or other country will look around the country that maybe have opportunity with this situation. Indo-Pacific not only talking about the economic, but in the politics also, I think one of main issue. If we have some miscommunication on politics with China, I think with Indo-Pacific we have chance to more support from the Indo-Pacific region, especially from US, to solve a lot of problems.
In response to such Indo-Pacific trend, Indonesia opted to push for a collective outlook on the Indo-Pacific at the ASEAN level, one that is hoped to play in par with the gravity of forces posed by great powers. For Indonesia, the achievement of true openness, transparency, and inclusivity for the Indo-Pacific that unites rather than divide will lie in the role of ASEAN, which for Indonesia is a channel to project a sense of collective leadership to its missions.
Di tengah situasi dunia seperti saat ini, Presiden menyatakan menjadi penting artinya ASEAN memiliki outlook mengenai masalah Indo-Pasifik. Dan outlook ini mencerminkan sentralitas dan kekuatan ASEAN dalam menghormati perdamaian, budaya, dialog, dan juga memperkokoh kerjasama. Dan Indonesia menyampaikan terima kasih atas dukungan dari negara-negara anggota ASEAN di dalam bersama-sama kita mengembangkan konsep outlook ASEAN on Indo-Pacific. Kalau teman-teman ingat, mungkin sekitar setahun yang lalu, kita mundur setahun lalu, pada saat Indonesia mulai mempresentasikan konsep Indo-Pacific ASEAN ini. Jadi banyak sekali pertemuan yang sudah kita lakukan. Terakhir adalah tadi malam para menteri luar negeri membahas isu tersebut, dan alhamdulillah pada hari ini outlook ASEAN mengenai Indo-Pasifik telah diadopsi oleh para pemimpin ASEAN. Jadi sekali lagi alhamdulillah ASEAN telah menyetujui outlook Indo-Pasifik yang diinisiasi oleh Indonesia.
Indonesia seeks to drive Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific away from being defined through potential conflict and confrontation between great powers, reassert the ASEAN-led regional architecture and mitigate trends of polarization through harmonizing competing visions from great powers into ASEAN-led frameworks. Does what happens outside of the region, especially now in Europe, have an impact on the Indo-Pacific? The protracted nature of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the scale of casualties and destruction, and the geopolitical importance of the location of the conflict has had global impacts. A fracturing Europe, the re-emergence of bloc politics and alliances, and the return of the West versus East tension have created an external geopolitical dynamic to the Indo-Pacific.
The use of violence that has been promoted by Russia to achieve its political goals are feared to be emulated by other countries, not just within the Indo-Pacific area, but maybe other countries around the world, to grasp and to achieve their own political goals. And within this region, within this Indo-Pacific region, we do understand that there are certain security issues that can result to an open conflict, whether it's the issues on the mountains of the Himalayas between India and China, whether it's in the waters of the South China Sea or the East China Sea, or even the smallest maritime or geographical disputes between any countries within the area. We know that there are some elements or possibilities that it can erupt to a conflict. And so we fear that any sort of promotion or further escalation of this provocation or any other sort of provocations within the area can lead to this. So as long as the world kept on allowing such practice to happen, that we fear that what happened in Ukraine, in east part of Europe, can also happen in the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, or the whole Indo-Pacific region.
Some experts have voiced concerns that with the US attention and resources kept away in Europe, it could create a further lack of engagement from the US to the Indo-Pacific, reducing the chance of a balance in competition between US and China, or even hastening regional hegemonic transition. This suggests that the shift of center of gravity of world's geopolitics to the Indo-Pacific may not be a smooth one. The state of globalization has meant the spillover of conflict between great power will be felt far and wide. What about for Indonesia? The effect of sanctions and the decoupling of economies, for instance, can serve as both an opportunity or risks for Indonesia. Indonesia's globalized economy is exposed due to its interactions with Russia and Ukraine, which had impacted the supplies of commodities. Indonesia also suffers from the global inflation caused by sanctions and rising price of energies from the disruption to the global oil market. At the same time, decoupling between great powers will also provide the temptation for countries like Indonesia to seize opportunities from the reorganization of supply and financial chain. This could range from Indonesia being the target of relocation of investment and factories between conflicting great powers from one another, or as a supplier for commodities.
When a lot of investors like Tesla looking around Indonesia, this is a good opportunity because Tesla is one biggest investor not only in China but around the world. So if the situation make opportunity, I think give signal not only Indonesia but other countries like India or Singapore or other countries to look around more chance to invest in Indo-Pacific region. Geopolitical situation between Russia and Ukraine, the positive impact is the commodity price rise, like crude palm oil and then coal and then nickel. I think those are the primary commodity export of Indonesia. We have a lot of advantage for this one. We have windfall profit tax, and we can use this windfall profit tax to give more subsidies because to the people, for the people, or for the poor people, also for the energy, because we are the net importer country. We need more a lot of oil from other country. With this situation, we can push our price for the oil more affordable for a lot of people. So I think this one change. And the second one, this also have a significant for our economic growth. Like because we have surplus of trade, make our economic more better than we know that this quarter, the second quarter of 2022, our economic growth is 5.40%. That it is caused by, of course, by export more rapidly than before.
In the end, Indonesia has a massive interest to actively contribute towards a stable and prosperous region as a source of its own growth as a nation. For Indonesia, political divides and frictions between great powers could mean a derail to some of its most important foreign policy agenda towards the region and the globe.